So friends, in case you needed any more evidence of how Donald Trump would corrupt and weaponize the FBI and the DOJ if he were to again become president, new reporting just revealed that the Trump White House controlled, constrained, in a very real sense, killed the investigation into Brett Kavanaugh's unsuitability to be a Supreme Court justice. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, this may come as no surprise, but new reporting just revealed that Donald Trump and his White House henchmen corrupted the investigation into Brett Kavanaugh when his nomination to the Supreme Court was pending confirmation. Let's start with the new reporting. This from Axios. Headline: Trump White House curtailed FBI's Kavanaugh probe, report finds. And that article begins: the Trump White House allegedly sought to constrain and control a 2018 FBI investigation into now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, according to new details documented in a report released Tuesday. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's report details the extreme grip former President Trump's administration kept over the probe into Kavanaugh's alleged sexual misconduct, including having FBI tips forwarded to the White House and preventing agents from pursuing corroborating evidence. Quote, the FBI's supplemental background investigation into the sexual assault allegations against Kavanaugh was unreliable, not because of FBI ineptitude, but because the Trump White House tightly controlled the scope of the investigation, the report reads. White House's years-long investigation found that messages to the FBI tip line regarding Kavanaugh's background check were forwarded directly to the White House and never probed. At the time, many involved in the case and those who submitted tips complained that the Bureau did not investigate leads it was given. Indeed, friends, I did a number of videos about this. The 4,500 citizen tips that were provided to the FBI regarding Brett Kavanaugh's unsuitability to be a Supreme Court justice, not only did they go uninvestigated, but they were handed directly to Donald Trump and his White House henchmen so he could make sure they went uninvestigated. Here is a press release from Senator Whitehouse back in August of 2022. FBI director confirms agency sent tips from Kavanaugh tip line to Trump White House without investigating. Trump White House also determined which witnesses the FBI should interview, and 4,500 tips to FBI went uninvestigated. You know, friends, I yelled about this from the rooftops when the story first broke. Think about this. The FBI solicited citizen tips. Tips from people who had information about Brett Kavanaugh's unsuitability to be a Supreme Court justice. Those citizens who put themselves out there, took a risk, had every right to expect the tips would be followed up on, they would be professionally investigated, but instead, those 4,500 tips about Brett Kavanaugh were handed directly to Donald Trump and his White House henchmen, who had every incentive to bury them so they could get their Supreme Court pick confirmed. You know, friends, think about it this way. If the FBI solicited citizen tips about, mafia operations, extortion rackets, strong-arm tactics going on in their neighborhood, making mom and pop stores pay protection money. If the FBI solicited tips like that and rather than investigate them, just handed them over to the mob boss. Now, the FBI will say, well, this wasn't really a criminal investigation. It was a background investigation, and our rules and procedures provide that we collect up the information, and then we give it to the agency for which we are doing the background investigation. And that may be normal rules and procedures, but, maybe you need to have exceptions built into your rules and procedures. Maybe you need to be a little bit more nimble when information comes pouring in about how somebody ought not be a Supreme Court justice. But Donald Trump wanted his man confirmed, and confirmed he was, so he could go on to vote and revoke women's constitutional privacy rights. So he could go on to vote and bestow immunity on Donald Trump for the crimes he committed to try to steal a presidential election. And he could go on to vote that insurrectionists, somebody who was adjudicated by both a state court, a trial court, and a state Supreme Court as an insurrectionist, he can still hold office, notwithstanding that the 14th Amendment says he can't, says he's disqualified. Yeah, they got their man confirmed, didn't they? And friends, I have wondered this aloud over and over again, those 4,500 tips. Don't you have to wonder what's in those 4,500 tips that Donald Trump might be able to hold over the head of Brett Kavanaugh? Well, friends, let's never lose our capacity to be outraged and disgusted by what Donald Trump and his corrupt and criminal assistants and administration members did the first time around. And, take that anger and that frustration, and if you're experiencing anxiety and despair, take it all and let it fuel you. Let it motivate you to get to the polls in numbers too big to rig and too real to steal. And bring a friend, bring a neighbor. Make sure everyone in your circle is registered. Make sure they get to the polls. And I've been saying recently, on the suggestion of a good friend named Holly, that if your jurisdiction allows early voting, get there now. Get there today. Get there tomorrow. Get there well in advance of November 5. Why? Well, in part, it's a public safety issue because Donald Trump, has been trying to train poll workers. What might they do? Well, they might try to intimidate folks who make their way to the polls on Election Day to cast their vote for Kamala Harris. So get out and vote now. Do it early. Get your friends and your families. Get your neighbors. Get acquaintances. Heck, get strangers. Anybody. Make sure they're registered and make sure they get to the polls and get there early. Don't wait until Election Day. Get there now. Because this nation cannot long endure. Yes, we've heard that phrase used before. This nation cannot long endure a second Trump administration and a further weaponization of the FBI and the Department of Justice. We can't. And we won't. Because justice matters. Hang in there, friends. Please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.